Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Blame It on Marketing with, I was about to say Emma and Ruta and point at you for Emma. We're in my house and we're filming an episode because it's a special episode where we are going to talk all about competitors.
Yes.
So, should we, in true Blame It on Marketing style, start off with something that we fucked up recently?
Oh my god.
You weren't ready for this.
Where do we start? I was meant to finish building the Blame It on Marketing website to show Emma today, and I was meant to do that on the weekend, and then she reminded me, I was like, oh, that's what I was meant to do this weekend. Okay, great, thanks. So sorry about that.
I am trying to think of something that I've done recently that's been a bit of a fuck up. I mean, there's been loads of typos in things. Made some pretty terrible thumbnails for some of our LinkedIn lives with some floating shoulders, which I have now rectified. Mm-hmm. But you know, when you do something at speed and you're like, should have probably just taken a little bit longer to do them.
Yeah, just cropping the shoulders, guys.
Yeah, just
always get.
I know,
shoulder. Yeah,
I know, but I've sorted it now.
Yeah, it's fine.
So apologies to anyone whose shoulders were floating previously.
Yeah, or got narrowed. If you're particularly proud of the width of your shoulders, I'm very sorry. Love that. Why are we talking about competitors?
Well, so why are we talking about competitors? I personally think we're talking about competitors because we are kind of fed up with, you know, B2B businesses in particular trying to chase the tail of their competitors. And the reason I think we both think this is such a difficult thing is because, as we've said in previous episodes, the market for products, especially like B2B tech, actually even professional services, there are so many people who do a very similar thing to your business that if you are chasing the tail of your competitors, you're just kind of never going to catch up, right? Is that fair?
It's a game you can play where you're on purpose not getting ahead because you are chasing. Like, if you're chasing and there's nothing to chase, it means that you're not chasing. But if there is, it means that something's in front of you, right? Like, philosophically speaking.
Nice voice.
Thank you. So it totally makes sense. And I think from a practical perspective, we've definitely been like sucked into like this, oh, our competitors are doing and it's all great. And like, look at how cool this is, or look at how well this is working. We've all had that conversation with either a founder or a CMO or whatever in a business. And in reality, like, most of the time we don't know if what they're doing is working.
Well, that was the thing.
Yeah,
isn't it?
like,
it's like
at the most basic level, like,
and LinkedIn is rife with this stuff, isn't it? It's like, and if it's not B2B, because it's hard to draw B2B comparisons, but people are always drawing comparisons between like McDonald's and Burger King and like, you know, those big brands that you sort of think you have no freaking clue whether this stuff is working or not realistically, other than the fact as a marketer, you think the ad campaign's better than the other one, which is subjective. It's not objective at all. So I guess why do we think marketers or senior leaders in particular get into this habit of like trying to chase the tail of their competitors in the first place?
I think when you have competitors, it's an easy benchmark to kind of look at. So it's something obvious to compare yourself against, because God, do I know that the world of startups is very strange and like you never know if you're doing the right thing. So if you have a competitor, you're like, oh, okay, they're doing this. They're our competitors according to me, so we should be doing this. I think that's one thing. I also think there's like different ways to chase your competitor. So we spoke about this. There's like the marketing chase, but really there's the product chase, which you can or choose not to do. But obviously marketing stuff is usually easy to replicate and, you know, it happens a lot more. So I think it's that. Or maybe like I'm like mushing points together. Maybe you're like a CEO that is aspiring to be like one of your competitors in terms of like size or like a product suite or like company team size. So when you see them doing stuff, you're like, oh, well, I want to get there. So I get there by doing what they're doing, right?
Like, if I just copy.
It's not an illogical thought process. What about you? Why do you think people get into their competitors so much?
I think, yeah, everything that you're saying I completely agree with. I also think we fall into this trap, especially when I think the C-suite fall into this trap. I'm going to say this is outside of marketing because they think that's kind of how marketing works. if we just copy what they're doing, we will have the same success. But you don't know how much budget they're throwing into something. You don't know what kind of specialism they've got. You don't know what they're doing, on, as you've said rightly, on the product side. So it's sort of this, I don't know, it's this icky thing. And it's like, yeah, you sort of feel like these people are doing it because they think they can replicate success, when the reality is, quite often, I feel like these people do this stuff. Sometimes it just happens randomly and their success takes off, or right moment in time.
There's lots of factors that
stuff.
Also, there's loads of factors that might come together that you're just so unaware of. I think we have a really good example of this where, so when we were working at Clearview, shout outs to it as always, best CEO ever. I say that as a sarcasm. That's not sarcasm. So we were funded, but we only ever did like a really small amount of funding, like in the 1 million and a bit range kind of thing. And then one of our competitors, who didn't really start out as our competitor, but then they built the bit that we were doing, and then we built a bit of what they were doing. So we were like almost
neck and neck.
Yeah, neck and neck, but like opposite specialities. They got an insane round. What was it? $68 million of funding.
God,
like it was
insane.
Yeah, it was wild. We started seeing like how they're spending that money, how they're promoting the performance management bit, which was our specialty. To us, I don't think at any point we thought, oh, we must copy what they're doing.
No.
We were never requested to do it either, which was
that's nice.
Why Stuart's great. But some of the things that happened, for example, so for the entirety of the performance management and engagement market, the PPC keywords got wild because they were just pumping insane amount of cash to a point where like clicks could cost in the £1,000. A click could cost that much. And like, we know how much things sell for. We know what the margins are on these things. And like, Emma and I were like, yeah, we're not competing with that because like, we're not even going to make money on this anymore if we're doing that.
Point.
And if they want to blow their cash, sure. Did it suck that we had to, not have as much success in the PPC realm? Yeah, sure. But like,
you find other creative means, right? And I think that's the thing. Yeah, when your product is neck and neck. I mean, we'll get into the product thing later, because I think we've also got some stuff around product to discuss when it comes to competitors. But I think, like when you don't have any idea either how successful that stuff's doing. So they were pumping this cash into Google Ads, thinking they're biting up all of the hits, but you have no idea because, like, let's be honest, right? Even with Google Ads now, we don't actually know how much intent there is when someone clicks through. Were they even converting? We don't know. But all we know is that basically they've created this crazy competitive landscape that then we cannot be involved in. We can't play in that field. And then, like I say, you have to. Someone's just given us some money on Monzo. I feel like we're like Twitch streamers.
I know.
Hey, you can buy us a coffee
or a dog
or not
treat,
or newt,
whatever you like. Yeah.
And so it just forced us to be more creative, I think, about the campaigns we were doing. And I think I'll be honest, while we were working there, and I have felt this since at other companies that I've worked for, I wasn't interested in what our competitors were doing, really, from a marketing point of view, because we were focused on the kind of, and I hate to say this, it sounds so cringy, but we were really focused on trying to start what was actually kind of more of a movement around the platform that we were selling, because we knew that realistically that tech-wise they were very similar, but we knew that if we could market the product in a way that spoke to not only our ICP, but like tried to, in this particular case, tried to get employees engaged with performance management in this case from the get-go, that we would have success, because it's kind of like this top-down, bottom-up approach. Like, you're going to meet in the middle and eventually you're going to convince people that they need this thing. And that obviously worked at Clearview. So I think, we were not, I don't remember ever looking at what Culture Amp were doing and being like, oh, we should be doing that.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that was, we were lucky and that was a mindset thing.
Maybe we should have. I don't know, but we did pretty well.
I think it was okay.
No one complained.
People are still talking about it to this very day.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's a good example of somewhere where we could kind of see what they were doing. You don't always get that, and also you don't always get news like, oh, they've got, a bunch of new funding. Like, obviously we knew what to expect when that happened, kind of from a product and marketing perspective. I think there are probably some other examples where things are much smaller and maybe more opaque in terms of your competitors. I don't know if If you got one off the top of your mind.
I think I would have to go kind of maybe outside of the tech world to talk about that sort of stuff. I think when you are super niche, for example, I feel like it's easier to tell what they're doing because your product is for like let's say like a particular industry, and therefore it's like the norm is this thing that everybody does, and if your product follows the norm and it's like this really specific thing that it does, like performance management is huge, everyone in a company does it. If it's, I'm really struggling to think of a real specific example, but like if you make, I don't know, technology that is for public sector workers so that they can communicate effectively while they're out on their job. I do know someone who works for a tech company like this. That's where the specific comes from. Yeah, it's like, of course you kind of know what your competitors are doing, because I imagine lots of the conversations with your customers are really going to be focused on like, why should I change over from this and that, when it's very much like a this comparison. Or that, like direct comparison. And so in those sorts of cases, I can see, not that necessarily being a need, but you would need to be conscious of your competitors, I think, in that space. Not everybody can do the clear review starting a moment thing, and I'm not advocating for that either. It worked because of the specific situation and the time as well. The timing is everything, you know, like the world was changing at that point.
I guess that kind of delves into more maybe more the product side of things, because when you're going up against another tech, for example, and you're like comparing feature for feature, you obviously need to be aware of what they are if that conversation happens a lot. And I think that's where, you know, actually differentiating in the product might be better than differentiating in the marketing, or copying in the marketing, depending on which way you go, because it will get just confusing, right, for the buyer. Like,
and they all look very similar.
Yeah, we'll just get the cheapest one. Thanks, bye. And then you're on a price war, and who wants to be in that?
No one wants to be in that either. Yeah. So it's like, I think on the product thing as well, I think a lot of this is where like your go-to-market should be the kind of guiding star, your North Star, rather than what are your competitors doing, which again, I think is a trap that a lot of people fall into. It's like, lots of people don't even have a freaking go-to-market strategy, let alone like
or a business strategy sometimes.
Probably why they're chasing their competitors in the first place, because they don't have the go-to-market strategy. So you just imitate, And I think, the go-to-market strategy should be the thing that sort of dictates ultimately the direction of the product, which should then dictate everything else, which is so uncommon, you know. And it's also even just understanding where your product sits. So you go on G2 or whatever, Capterra, and you look at their quadrant and you see where you fit in that like product space. And it's like, do you even understand? Is your product niche? Is it premium? Is it like, I don't know, like, is it cheapest chips
for sectors? Or,
cheapest chips for everybody, you know, like what market are you actually trying to capture? And then therefore that equally, like, I think that kind of helps you double down on your ICP, because it's then like, not only are we super niche or something, we know specifically who it is that is able to buy our thing, and then that's the thing that we're making, and we're making a product for those people that they need, and therefore you're not bothered about your competitors because you have your ICP in mind and you know where your product is positioned in the market.
You're talking to your ICP, so you're debbing for your ICP, and you know.
Well, let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Fingers crossed.
I mean, again.
Yeah. So the example with Clear Review was that at one point we built out like an engagement bit to the platform. It was a thing that was happening across the industry, and our CEO kind of identified it and was like, we got to cover ourselves somehow in that area. And we did that, and that was really good. And that was like kind of like understanding where we are, where the industry's going, and what we need to do to be able to keep competing, rather than us just blindly copying our, you know, competitors and what they were doing. So I think that was a really good product-led thing. And then obviously we did a bunch of marketing off the back of that. That was maybe a little more similar to the competitor stuff, because it was about the bit our competitors were like specialized in.
But we were specific on the use of it. So that was the difference, right? We had a take on, yes, okay, in the platform, the thing is very similar to the other things, but we have a specific methodology that sits behind that, which is why we built it like that. that had gravitas, you know, it was, you know, there was an occupational psychologist involved, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it like really gave the product, the bit of tech meaning, if you like, which you could say is just marketing bullshit if you really want to.
Yeah, but I think it comes through in like then the content that you make.
Yeah,
like if you know who you are and you know what your specific take is, and again, I get that a lot of people don't have that specificity in their roles and haven't like distilled that. We again very luckily had a very specific take on what we're doing, and we're very well informed. Like we had a sheet that we could like give to people to teach them what the take is, kind of thing. We could then create content and create really great stuff and know exactly like what our ethos is and how this is going to work together. But that only comes from knowing where you're going and who you want to be as a business and a product and how you want to serve people. For the most part, like I'm really pro competition in a sense of like if you're starting a new business and there's no other competitors, that's actually a red flag. Like, why are there no competitors? So if you have competitors, don't feel bad. You're good. But you just you have to meta understand where you're at rather than like go in and copy.
And it's okay to like do your keyword research, look at your competitors' websites in SEMrush.
Yeah.
Do all of that stuff. Have a look at the sort of things that they say and they do, as a way of maybe understanding like where your USPs are and where your business stands out. So that's the way I would do it. It's like almost doing a SWOT on your, I mean, everyone hates a SWOT analysis. I don't love them. It's very 1980s, but whatever. Like it's still a useful exercise to look at your competitors and to have those kind of battle cards ready for salespeople and those sorts of things. That's completely understandable. But like, I think, it's basically trying to replicate what they do and always being one step behind, because you will always be one step behind, right? Naturally, because you're like, they've done this, we must do this now, or we must react because they've done that. Like, that's just... It means you also cannot follow any kind of strategy. You just can't.
No, you just gotta keep like copying as it comes up.
Yeah. And the other thing is that we you know, like we touched on when we were talking about clear review, that the competitor that we mentioned had got a huge amount of funding. Yeah, you don't always know. So you don't always know what people are spending. So you cannot compete. You really actually cannot compete with some of your competitors because you don't know what their marketing budget is. You know, like...
And you don't know how much they're willing to blow on each customer.
How much wasted. What's their... We know what our customer acquisition cost is, but what's theirs, we don't know. So you don't know. The only thing you can do is, like, basically center everything around your ICP, I think, and serve them.
Yeah, and, you know, if you have current clients, try and get more clients that love you the way that your current clients love you. Like, really niche down on that. And I think that's one of the ways that you could probably, I think as a marketer, you're probably in the camp of someone is telling you to copy your competitors, probably, rather than you being like, they're doing. So one of the ways that you can have a conversation as a marketer about not copying your competitors is by bringing up those kind of hard numbers and explaining that based on what you have to use, actually your strategy is the most efficient strategy. And I don't know what our competitors' numbers are, so I can't say that this move is the right move to copy.
Very wise, very wise. I think also, if that is the type of conversation that you're having with someone senior where they're like, do this, obviously the numbers, fantastic. But I think you can basically always tie it back to whatever your strategy is and say, I don't see that in our strategy and our USPs are X, Y, Z, and therefore this is why we're going down this route, rather than kind of going off on a tangent and like trying to do something that's already kind of been done. I mean, I'm trying to think in my mind, does this ever actually work for anyone? I can't think of a client that I've worked for where we've ever had those conversations and acted off the back of it and it's worked out. I don't see.
If you're in a position where you are the company with the huge budget and you have a competitor that may be smaller than you, but you really think that this is where you should be going, you can probably out copy them. So take what they do plus add all of your budget fire behind it. You can probably do it that way around. But if you're in the smaller company, budget wise and resource wise, trying to copy up,
you're going to struggle.
You need your own thing. And I'm telling marketers to suck eggs. You need to differentiate, right? Like that's how you're going to win, not by copying, especially in complex products with lots of buyers. Like this isn't someone buying shoes. Even then, like that's a big topic. Shoes is not a good example. You know, this isn't someone buying like Samsung versus iPhone of the same like expensiveness and the same like feature flag situation. Like it's different, and you might differentiate it yourself in like service. I don't know. You can without, you know, copying your competitors do that. Like there's lots of ways to do that.
Definitely. I think some of the ways, if your product is very, I guess that's what we should maybe talk about now, is maybe if your product is very similar to another that's out there on the market, which we expect there to be, what are some of the ways that you would go out about finding your differentiators? That's hard to say, especially after one glass of wine. Age. Like, what are some of the things that you would do? I've got some ideas, but you go first. What are some of the things you might do?
So I would look at, so depends. Are we talking about like homogeneous products, like identical?
Yeah, basically, I feel like if the feature set is like for like if you had a checklist and there was like, we all do basically the same thing. Like,
so I would look for different audiences to go after, because it'll be much easier to go after usually a specific audience with specific needs, even if the product's identical. I would look at what your current users love you for, and if it's like very well-defined use cases, I would sell on those use cases rather than like the whole product, like feature list basically. I would look at who is employed there and see if I can figure out what kind of marketing they're doing based on like the marketing team stack.
Yeah.
Or, for example, maybe their founder is like some person from a financial background and that actually has nothing to do with this. It's just they were able to set up a business whilst you have a leader in that industry. Okay, cool. We need to focus on the fact that we know what we're talking about and we've been dealing with this, and vice versa. If you don't have that and it is somebody from an unrelated industry that's starting, then okay, how can we make that work for us, and how can we you know, how can we get in other people or whatever. So like it's almost like identifying the differences and then seeing what ways you can make them work for you.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to think of when copying could be useful, and copying maybe like what places people hang out in.
Yeah.
So like maybe if you're not on LinkedIn as a B2B business, all your competitors are, then you should maybe think about it. Like, you know, things like that. But that's like, so
it's not copying though.
It's not copying.
Content,
it's just like,
is it? It's like,
it's not marketing
channels,
tactics. It's just,
which is fine. Which I think, that is fine. We're talking about literally people copying almost verbatim what someone does.
Which has also happened to us.
Yeah.
So when people start copying you, you know you're doing the good shit. What about you? What are some of the ways you look for?
Definitely, the point you made about who they have in their company is really important. The expertise you have on your team versus what the expertise you perceive those people to have on their team. I think that's really important because you can differentiate there. Like if your product director has, you know, like, I don't know, 30 years experience. I mean, not that I think years of experience equates good, by the way, but if that is, you know, something you need to do because, I don't know, you work in fintech and that's really important to the buyers, whatever, that's a classic example, I think, there, then I can understand that you would be able to be like, oh, our product director has done this and blah, blah, blah. And like, that's really good to be able to do that. And then I would focus on other things like, the service you provide. So like if you have a really awesome customer success team in tech or customer service team who are experts in that area. So say, for example, in the fintech space or HR tech, you have people who are HRBPs or, you know, they're banking or whatever, and they're working in those teams. Find a way to highlight that and to make it really crystal clear that you have like a level of expertise that your competitors don't have. I think that's really important. And then the other things are around, we obviously talked about marketing tactics, but I think, you know, there's also things around community and customer advocacy and those sorts of things, which are really public. So are people actually talking about your competitors, or is it your competitor screaming into the void?
Yeah, which you're subscribed to for some reason because they're a competitor, right?
Yep. So you can differentiate yourself there. Like even on review websites, if you see your competitors have like 2 G2 reviews and you don't have any, you can all of a sudden dominate that. And I think that's a good thing to try and do. Again, if, like, for example, you see your competitors have loads of different communities and you're like, actually, that's no good for us because therefore you're trying to draw people away from places that they naturally hang out. How can you either infiltrate other communities, like even just going on Reddit or like other places that you might not have considered, and trying to start conversations through experts? I think those are the things that I would do when the products are very like alike. And then I guess my question from that is, if you're in marketing and you're worried that your product is very samey, what are some of the things that marketing can do to influence the product?
She went there. Ask that.
She went there. Bring back Talia quickly.
Yeah, Talia, where you're at. I have never done this successfully, so I can only talk to what our other speakers have done and told us. Figure out who your product person is, who's making those decisions, and then figure out what they need to be to impressed and convinced before you do anything else. Like, just try and figure them out as a human being.
Yeah.
And then have empathy and try to understand their workflows so that you can understand what their priorities are. Because you can come up with the best idea ever, like they might love it, but if it's not able to move up their priority list and it hasn't got urgency behind it, it's never going to happen. So I feel like it's like in the people management and understanding people realm, it's not actually about what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or, go above the head. I've never done that before.
So one of my clients, actually, I have a very good relationship with the product people, and because the CEO is also the founder is very close to the product, and then the product director is really good, and he and the head of engineering are really interested actually in the commercial aspect of the business, which is the kind of the green light to be able to have these conversations. So I think, Ruta, you're right. It's that if you can get them interested in the commercial aspects of the business, you are kind of opening the gateway to the conversations. Yeah, you can't. The conversation cannot start. I haven't got anything to market, or this is what our competitors are doing, and da 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 da. Yeah. Again, it's all got to be framed around your ICP. The other thing is, ideal customer profiles are for the entire business. They're not supposed to be just for marketing. Yeah. They're supposed to dictate the product roadmap, the sales processes you have, the customer success processes you have, or service processes you have. They shouldn't just be a marketing thing. So again, and that's really hard because again, that is a different way of working for a lot of people, because traditionally it has been something that just marketing use. Yeah. So again, I would just say, like, if you are going through an ICP process or you've got an ICP, I think making sure you've got those stakeholders in the room to input from the product side, it just makes it easier to have a product conversation further down the line. Yeah. And the other thing I was just going to say about the client that I mentioned, where we have a good conversation, I think they kind of, the guys that I work with, I hope if they hear this, they're like, okay, yeah, she's not just talking crap. That I think they want me to come to them and say, this is what our ICP want. And there's customer success, and then there's marketing, and we are the two sets of people who can do that. So if you can also get customer success on board, then the two of you having the conversation with product is so much stronger. So because there's that, then it's it's real pressure. Yeah. So I and that works with the guys that I work with. I'm very lucky.
The one time I have had product change prioritize was actually when I floated the idea in just a senior management meeting as a concern, and it wasn't the product person that was really like on board with it. It was the CFO, which I would have never expected. But because they were the CFO, they literally pushed it through in like weeks. They were like, yep, pay for it, go do it, get engineering to get involved. And I was like, whoa, okay. So sometimes it's not going to be necessarily the product person that maybe is going to be your ally in this.
Absolutely.
There'll be other people that are an ally. Same with like
a CRO or whatever.
Yeah, CRO, or like even the CEO. So when we were planning to build the Clear Review community, my then boss was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, but like let's test it out in little bits. And then I randomly spoke about it to Stuart, and he was like, oh, this sounds fantastic, like go do it. And I was like, okay, cool. So then we went and did it, and it was a great success, blah blah blah. But yeah, so sometimes sometimes just float things by people and see what reaction that you get, because you might find unexpected allies that want the same things as you do.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it just goes back to that, with any management of stakeholders, that marketing education piece, that is like a core bit of our job. Like I think you and I have been talking about this a lot lately with other groups. We recently did a lovely thing with Girls in Marketing. We loved it. And we were talking about that. So much of our job is the stakeholder management side.
Especially if you're senior.
Oh my gosh.
That's most of your job.
Yeah, that is like 90% of your job basically, is managing the other people in the kind of in the C-suite with you. And yeah, I mean, even if you're junior, you've still got to manage upwards. It's all of that. So I think that rings true for the product conversation we were just having, and also the competitor conversation, because if you can't manage the relationships with people internally, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And it's being obsessed with your competitors and copying what they do is kind of illogical. Like you can always kind of figure it out. It's like, no, if we want to compete, we have to have something to compete for, and that isn't doing more of the same thing as our competitors are doing. And we probably won't do it as well, because like they're ahead of us. They probably have a deep reason to why they're doing it, and we don't. We're just copying. Like those intricacies aren't there. So just do things that you are committed to, and like that will make sense for your strategy and your brand. Should we do a quick confessions
or gossip?
I'm so sorry, gossip, not confessions. Yes.
As you were just saying that, I was actually just thinking, the word that came to my head when you were just saying that was how superficial copying someone is. It's so surface level, because you cannot have any possible understanding about how successful
unless
something is.
There's like corporate espionage.
Yeah.
And you actually know what's going on. That's different.
I mean, every now and again, we would have a drink with someone and we find out, and then we're like, ooh, that's not corporate espionage, by the way. That's just
people,
mates
telling you stuff. But yeah, so true.
So gossip. Yeah. Okay. Anything that's irked you that you love? What do you want to air?
Marketing gossip. I've kind of spoken about this before, but I'm not enjoying this like late stage capitalism we're in, where tech companies are like buying billboards for like B2B tech.
Oh, you're not loving that?
No, it worries me.
Yeah.
Because like it means we're going after splashier and splashier channels, which means that we're,
doom. HubSpot advertising on Amazon Prime. Just I know that's not billboards, but
yeah, but it's like, I
know you got the budget, guys, but what the fuck?
It feels far reaching, and like there isn't enough clients
and we
anymore.
love HubSpot, but still.
Yeah, same with like when they had the billboards in City Airport. Like I was just like, what in the...
Didn't they sponsor a tube station as well?
Probably. I get it, but I don't get it, and also makes me worry about the economy. I think that's why it kind of bugs me when I see that stuff, because it's like...
You feel like it's the first sign of, my God, we're fucked.
We're fishing for anything we can get at this point.
Yeah.
What about you?
Ick. My is also an ick. Obviously, we're not supposed to talk about politics, but we cannot avoid it, because I think what we saw at Donald Trump's inauguration, and the fact that the tech companies are all literally next to Trump, that worries me. Because not only is it a kind of, again, a sign of like, I mean, let's not get into the toxic masculinity involved with all that shit, but I what concerns me is you have channels that, especially when we were kind of moving towards this more like purposeful marketing, empathy marketing, all the feels, and it's like that is at odds now with using those platforms.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to reconcile that in my brain yet. And I posted about it the other day, and I noticed that nobody engaged with the post apart from you, because obviously
I'm her biggest fan.
we're buddies.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, is that because everyone thinks I'm mental because I'm looking at Zuckerberg going, I don't want to use Meta now?
Yeah, no, I think it's, like for example, we have Facebook accounts because we sometimes have to use it for marketing.
Yeah.
We don't go on them, but like if we're spending money on advertisement, then that's the worst case scenario of all of the engagements you can do. You're literally giving them money, right? So yeah, I think a lot of marketers do have major ick about everyone that was at the inauguration.
I know. Even the OpenAI guy, who is a gay man, openly saying that he wants, like, supports Donald Trump.
I get that they do for, like, lobbying and tax reasons and openness.
We're not stupid, by the way. We get why you want the money.
But they'll be the same people that will get called in for monopoly.
Like,
So it's, major ick.
I just don't, I don't know. So I don't know if you ever have looked into the campaign against hate, stop funding hate stuff, which is basically a campaign in the UK, which basically says if you're a marketer, there's a lot of stuff to it, but if you're a marketer, don't advertise on things like the Daily Mail, for example, which you can easily avoid doing. And it just makes me wonder, like, where does this now stop? Like, you don't want to fund hate. I don't want my company to become famous because loads of people clicked on an ad that was in any way, connected with these people.
Yeah, that's a toughie.
My existential crisis will probably continue for the next 4 years. So more on that later.
Yeah. It's really it's a deep ethics problem, right?
Yeah.
As a person and as a business.
Yeah. And it's difficult because, if you're an organisation that doesn't support that stuff or,
But imagine you're a charity.
I mean,
you're fundraising, but you have to fundraise on Facebook because it's very successful. Like,
and then lots of them do.
Yeah, and how do you reconcile that?
I mean, I guess you could
times.
I don't know. Anyway, whatever. We're not here to solve that.
And on that bombshell, I think that's the best outro anyone's ever done in history. Is the Top Gear outro. On that bombshell.
On that bombshell.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Yeah, on that bombshell, thank you so much for joining us. Hope this gave you some confidence in batting back those copy our competitors' comments. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And we will see you in the next episode.
And in blameItonmarketing.com.